Hello everyone. I'm very happy to welcome you to a new edition of Outlook, the international program of University of Public Service Ludovica in our YouTube channel Ludovica TV. After a recent interview with the Portuguese ambassador in Budapest, we are continuing the Portuguese theme because of the Portuguese presidency of the Council of the European Union. And I'm happy to welcome to the studio through an internet link Professor João Miguel Henriques, who is director of the Instituto Camões in Budapest. Welcome, Professor, to the studio.
Thank you very much for the invitation.
Professor Henriques is a professor of Portuguese and German language and literature, studied at the very prestigious Universidade de Lisboa and also at the University of Edinburgh, where he studied comparative literature. But he is also somebody who has lived in Hungary for a long time because he has been lecturer of the Portuguese language at the University of Szeged, also taught at the Novi Sad University, and now since 2014 he is the director of the most important Portuguese Cultural Center in Budapest and also teaches at ELTE. Professor, it's a pleasure to have you, and I thought because perhaps we see Camões behind you as well as one of the
yes, of course.
Writers. I'd like to ask you about the task, the mandate of this very large network of Camões Institute. So what are your tasks all over the world?
Well, Camões Institute has a task of promoting Portuguese language all over the world, and also a big mission of cooperation with different institutions all over the world through development of teaching projects involving the Portuguese language, but also in regard to all the cultures, all the diversity of cultures that are expressed all over the world through Portuguese language. So it is a cultural institute, so there's also a big focus on cultural projects, but the truth is that the Portuguese language is always at the center of these initiatives, trying to link different institutions, initiatives, countries through the common ground, which is the Portuguese language, so widespread all over the world and with so many centuries of cultural diversity.
And in particular in Budapest, what are your aspirations? How are you promoting the Portuguese culture?
Well, in Budapest, the Portuguese Language Center in Budapest has different tasks, different objectives, mainly divided in two areas. In the language, for the language part, we are supporting through cooperation agreements the teaching and learning, of course, of the Portuguese language in different institutions of higher and secondary education. So we have protocols with 7 different universities in Hungary, with other 5 high schools in Hungary, not only in Budapest, but in other cities like Debrecen, Szeged, Pécs. And we support the teaching of Portuguese in these institutions. And on the other side, we also, like other cultural institutes, we have our cultural program where we try to contribute to the knowledge that Hungarians can have about Portuguese writers, artists, musicians through several initiatives. Normally, we try to get involved in existing events like the Budapest Book Festival, or music festivals, other initiatives, and try to cooperate in order to have a Portuguese cultural presence in the city of Budapest and in other areas of the country. Besides that, we are a cultural center with facilities, so we have a library that it's open to the general public, for people who are interested in visiting us. We organize Portuguese language official state exams twice a year, and we have and what we try to do is to be a link between Hungarians that are interested in Portuguese language and culture and opportunities to study or to research. So many people come to us with questions about scholarships, contacts, and we try to be a bit this common platform that can help Hungarians get closer to our language and to the cultures that are expressed through our language. And besides that, also some smaller but very important uh, tasks that we perform, like, for instance, ordering books to learn Portuguese from Portuguese publishers. We have mechanisms that people can contact us and order their books through us with a discount. These are everyday small things, but in the end, these are the things that people end up needing. The support of a cultural institute that makes this link between Portuguese language and culture and the Hungarians.
During a presidency period, each cultural institute likes to show the country's culture, music, books, and everything else. What can you do? How can you promote during the pandemic the Portuguese culture?
Well, to be honest, we had an interesting and ambitious program for this first semester of 2021, but things have been on hold, like everywhere else in the world, I would dare say. So, for instance, our opening concert ceremony for the Portuguese presidency had to be postponed several times. We are kind of waiting for the news after March the 1st to see what happens with the stages, with the public cultural spaces that in fact are necessary for us to organize all the things that we wanted to organize in this semester. But of course, there are still events planned for the first semester that we are hopeful that we can organize. The book festival in the spring, also this concert that had to be postponed. So we are waiting, like all the other institutes, to see how the situation develops. It's a very challenging period for the Portuguese presidency. Uh, we are still visible through our social networks and online events, but at the moment we are in this situation of waiting to see what are the restrictions in the forthcoming months and see what we can do.
I'd like to turn back to language teaching. Portuguese is spoken as a first language, as a mother tongue, basically in 7 countries, if I'm not mistaken, and by 250 million people all over the world. So how do you see the prospect of learning Portuguese in Hungary? Is it a popular language? Do you think it is worthwhile for Hungarians to learn Portuguese?
Well, the answer is yes, of course. I mean, Portuguese, as you said, it's a language that it's very widespread all over the world. Uh, the particularity of Portuguese, in my opinion, and which is a very interesting aspect and also an advantage, is that it gives access to the culture and the geography of very distinct parts of the world. So we have, besides a European starting point of the Portuguese, it's spread to continents so diverse as South America with Brazil, African countries, 5 of them, whose official language is Portuguese, also Asian communities. So it's not it's a language that enables the student or the researcher to travel in different geographies and very diverse cultures. And about the interest of the Hungarians, we have a very stable and good number of people officially studying Portuguese right now, which is around 400 students between the different universities and high schools. Portugal, Brazil, and also the African cultures have been becoming more visible, more popular in Central European countries, and also in other Eastern European countries, according to some of my colleagues. So I think there is a developing interest in the language. Also, from the state point of view, as you know better than I do, the Hungarian government has been strengthening ties, links with Portuguese-speaking countries through the opening of consulates, embassies, and many other kinds of economic and diplomatic cooperation. So I think that this is an increasing interest. I see also a huge universe community of private students that come to us asking for advice on private teachers and courses outside the domain of higher and secondary education. So there is also many people who have objectives of research or traveling to Portuguese-speaking countries. So I see the role of Camões in this area as a very crucial one, and I think that there has been in Hungary an increasing interest for languages that perhaps 20 or 30 years ago were outside the main interests of the students. So not only with Portuguese but with other languages, they're outside the traditional main foreign languages to learn. I think there's a lot of interest, and I'm very happy for this and very optimistic about the future of Portuguese in the world.
Thank you so very much. You are almost like a Hungarian. So finally, I'd like to ask you about the similarity of the two nations. You've lived here for 10 years now, if I understand it correctly.
Yes.
And people say sometimes that the psyche of the two nations is very similar. Do you feel like that?
Well, yes, I think there are common aspects. I actually feel like asking that to you yourself, but I know that I'm the one in the position of answering these questions. We can talk about it some other time, just you and me. But as you well know, although we are in two completely different parts of Europe, different geographies, different environments, I think there are some common aspects between Portuguese and Hungarian people. There's a certain, I would say, nostalgia about Portuguese culture that I also found here in Hungary. A certain way of looking at the past, which is not necessarily melancholic, but a bit nostalgic and ironic. I think I cherish a lot the Hungarian irony and the very sometimes sarcastic and funny way of looking at the history, which is mixed, of course, with some melancholy. So I would say that the Portuguese are the least party people of the of Southern Europe, perhaps the more reserved of the southern people. So I found some similarities, and I think that Hungarians also feel this. I think that Hungarians, when they go to Portugal and start having a closer contact with the Portuguese culture, they feel these similarities. And besides that, although the general public perhaps doesn't know, there are many contact points culturally throughout the history between Hungary and Portugal that kind of strengthen this link. And also when here in Hungary, Camões Institute also tries to underline these ties, these links, because yes, I think we are closer than most people think.
Thank you very much for the conversation, Professor Henriques. And I really hope that there is going to be a moment when we can welcome you here at Ludovica in person. Until then, thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much for the kind invitation. Thank you for the interest of Ludovica in our language, in our culture. And I'm sure that in the future our cooperation will be a very close one. Thank you very much.
Thank you.